Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, November 5th. I'm John Weigell with Sara Friedman, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. Egg freezing is becoming a hugely popular way for women to preserve their eggs and ensure that they can have a child when they're ready for it. The issue, though, is that it's pretty expensive, and women under 30 are much less likely to afford it. So today we're assessing a possible solution with the startup Cofertility and how they could change the fertility industry. We'll get to that in a bit, but first, let's give you the news in business and tech today. First off, considering today's the election, you might want to know that election coverage might be a little more sparse from the New York Times this week. Tech staffers at the New York Times, including software engineers, data analysts, and project managers, went on strike starting at midnight on Monday. Meanwhile, the company posted a 7% revenue increase in Q3. From there, we go to Denmark out of the United States, thankfully. Denmark-based healthcare juggernaut Novo Nordisk is finding a lot more ways to burn your fat and take your money. The drug maker's new offering, Cargisema, is another weight loss drug that claims to introduce at least 25% weight loss. From there, we go to Meta. Meta's Threads is looking like the little engine that could right about now. The company touted that its ex-competitor app is now up to 275 million monthly active users. Last week, Mark Zuckerberg also declared that the platform gets 1 million signups every day. And to the housing market, sorry, everybody, big sorries. According to research from the National Association of Realtors, the median age of home buyers in the U.S. hit a record high of 56, and that's up from 49 just last year in July. Sara, what do you think of this large jump? I think by my math, that's about a 7-year jump year to year.
Yeah, I think that probably reflects what a lot of people are feeling with the market currently. And there were some other stats that I think make a lot of sense in that report. The median age of a first-time homebuyer specifically also increased to 38 years old. And some interesting stats about who's buying homes. So 62% of recent buyers were married couples, but 20% were single women buyers. And that's compared with just 8% of single male buyers and 6% of unmarried couples, just to give you kind of a landscape of what's happening. But the 20% of single women buying homes, I think that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Certainly different than, earlier points in history. So that's an interesting change. And then 73% of recent buyers did not have a child under the age of 18 in their home. So I think altogether, the report, it's more than just the housing market. I think it's kind of an interesting look at what's happening in society in many ways and families. And yeah, definitely a lot of change happening, but not great news for first-time home buyers or any home buyers.
Yeah, not the best news for home buyers, but there are, as you mentioned, some interesting cultural shifts in there. And I think things that we've been kind of talking about here a lot, how people are having less kids and maybe more pets. And it really is just such a shift that we're experiencing right now. So that part is exciting. The higher median age, however, is not that exciting.
Right.
And finally, Coca-Cola is set to reintroduce a drink that the company acquired actually back in 2008. The drink is 86 years old. Can you guess what it is? We'll reveal that answer in the bottom of the ninth of the pod, so stick around after the main story to hear what that's all about. With smaller budgets, shorter timelines, and sky-high expectations, growth is feeling pretty painful right now. But HubSpot is here to help. They just announced more than 200 major product updates that'll make impossible business growth feel impossibly easy. Like Breeze, HubSpot's suite of new AI tools that help you say goodbye to busy work and hello to better work. There's Breeze Copilot, a sidekick to assist you with all your tasks and boost productivity, Breeze Agents to automate manual, time-consuming work and add expertise, and Breeze Intelligence to give you the richest, most comprehensive picture of your prospects you know which are most likely to become loyal customers. They've also reimagined their marketing and content hubs with all new ways to create breakthrough content, updated features to generate better leads, and lots more to uplevel your marketing and your revenue forecast. Get ready for growth without the growing pains. Visit HubSpot.com/spotlight to see them all and demo for yourself. Okay, so on to the main story today. Speaking of, we're today discussing the fertility industry and how a new startup looks to make some big changes in egg freezing. So, Sarah, first, can you tell me a bit about the egg freezing industry as it is, as I am a man?
Yes, just to set the scene here before we jump into what Cofertility is doing. So the fertility business as a whole touches about 100,000 births in the US every year. So this is something that, affects many people in different ways. And egg freezing in particular has a little bit of a struggle because the process is most effective when done under the age of 30 for women. But under the age of 30, you're much less likely to be financially secure and have the kind of money that it takes to freeze eggs. And we'll get into this later. It's quite expensive. And then on the flip side, once a woman can afford to freeze her eggs, it's sometimes biologically more challenging. So that's kind of the problem at the root of the egg freezing industry. And then to top it all off, some women, for many reasons, infertility, other health issues, aren't able to freeze their eggs at all. And then that would mean that they would need a donor to supply eggs if they wanted to carry a child themselves. So there's a lot of kind of obstacles standing in the way for women. And so far, this has kind of been the way of things that you either were able to cough up the cash or you kind of had to wait it out until it might be too late.
Sure. And of course, there are some exceptions in the industry as well. Like there are some companies that offer egg freezing, a site like Carrot or something that women can go to and go to their companies and get egg freezing done that way. I guess, though, the groups that we're talking about are groups that don't exactly have it offered and available to them for free, which is the grand majority of women in the United States. And that seems like to be where this startup comes in that kind of takes a very, very specific angle, it seems like, to be able to freeze your eggs, but not have to kind of destroy your life financially. So can you tell me a bit about this new startup?
Yeah, so exactly as you said, those benefits do exist. And I do think they're becoming more common, but that's kind of if you're very lucky and work at a company that has that kind of benefit. I think it's certainly still rare. So where Cofertility kind of is changing things is they let women freeze their eggs and store them for up to 10 years for free if they agree to donate half of their retrieved eggs. So that's the part of the model that's very different. When you sign up for these benefits, which is amazing to be able to do this process for free and, have 10 years of flexibility, but you are saying that you would donate half of your eggs, which is obviously a big decision not to be taken lightly, but could be a great fit for someone who is comfortable with donating and, would rather be able to undergo this process for free. So the company, essentially, it's using kind of an Uber model here. It doesn't actually own any IVF clinics, but rather it just works with clinics to create a database of about 150 to 200 egg donors, and aspiring parents can sort through. Donors can choose to remain completely anonymous, or they can be put in contact with prospective parents. Depends what kind of relationship they're looking for. And unfortunately, even with this new model, the price is not small as far as people looking to become parents who need donor eggs. So 6 eggs cost about $21,000, 12 cost closer to $37,000. But those fees do cover the cost of harvesting donor eggs and that procedure, the 10-year storage, all of the legal contracts. It's a really delicate legal process. And also eggs from a second donor should the first not produce a baby. So while the price is very steep, it does kind of cover all facets of the process.
It is a very interesting way to operate a business. I like the comparison you drew with Uber because, just to clarify, women that are doing this and freezing their eggs and donating half of them and storing up to 10 years, do they not have to pay anything for those 10 years of freezing?
Right. That's baked into the cost of the people who are purchasing donor eggs. So this is a completely free process. And as we just went through, there are so many expenses here. So it's really more than just the egg retrieval procedure. And that's why the bill for people looking to freeze their eggs just quickly can kind of spiral out of control. Egg donation is just a fraction of the fertility industry in the US, but it's an $8 billion industry. So just to
Wow.
kind of put it into perspective, I think people often don't think about kind of the economic impact of these types of family planning processes, but it definitely, I think, dictates people's decisions a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting angle to look at it as well, that fertility is a business as well, that it is a high economic driver. I mean, even looking up the egg freezing business, there's a report from Precedence Research that says the egg freezing business and embryo banking market together, revenue surpassed $5 billion in 2024. So it is a massive, massive industry.
Yeah, I think the other interesting part of their business, aside from the financial model that they've taken on, is in the traditional egg freezing model with donor eggs, the eggs are actually usually tiered based on donor characteristics. So literally eggs from an Ivy League educated woman would be more expensive, and they take into account, race and height.
That is a little weird.
Yes. This raises kind of big ethical questions. I think it can get a little dicey. So this is kind of also solving for that. Cofertility doesn't base prices on donor attributes, and they are kind of removing that direct exchange of compensation, which I had actually interviewed the founder of Cofertility a little while ago to speak about the company for a different article. And she said that that compensation piece is actually very off-putting to a lot of women, and it's what's actually standing in the way of becoming a donor, because accepting money for eggs just doesn't, sit right with everyone. So I think in many ways, this is maybe opening the door to people who feel comfortable donating, but wouldn't have felt comfortable receiving a check for it. So this is just a really interesting new model.
Sure. And it also opens the door for women that aren't exactly in the financial prime of their lives. They could be someday, but maybe at the time in their 20s, which is probably the best time to do something like this, they may not exactly have money to go anywhere else if their company doesn't offer. So I think it is just very, very interesting in that fact that they are finally allowed to do this. But of course, with the caveat that they will have to donate half of them, and not sure exactly how comfortable people would be with that.
Yeah, it's a super incredibly personal decision on so many fronts. And I think when you mix in large sums of money and bodily autonomy, family planning, it will vary person to person. But I think the more options that exist, the better.
Exactly. And before we wrap up today, we can go back to Coca-Cola, the 86-year-old drink that Coca-Cola is re-debuting this year is actually called Barrilitos. It's a fruity Mexican soft drink sold in California and Texas. Coke is reformulating the drink now to appeal to younger consumers of today, and a larger U.S. expansion may follow. So look for them in your grocery stores, delis, and wherever else you frequent. All right, and that'll do it for us today. Thanks for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of the HubSpot podcast network. Our editor today is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clark. We've got a lot more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go sign up at thehustle.co/email and throw us a follow on Instagram at The Hustle Daily. We'll see you tomorrow.
If you're struggling to keep up with all the latest innovations in tech and what they'll mean for your life, TED Tech has you covered. Get ahead of the curve with digestible downloads on some of the biggest ideas in technology, from AI and virtual reality to clean tech. Find TED Tech wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I've been listening to this awesome podcast lately. It's called Hustle and Flowchart, hosted by Joe Fear, and it's brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. The Hustle and Flowchart podcast with Joe Fear is all about how to build a business so it gives you the freedom and fuel for your life. You can join Joe as he discusses systems, mindset tweaks, reframes, and strategies for entrepreneurs, and really anyone, to be honest, to enjoy the process of being in business and also having fun. This isn't just for the entrepreneur looking to make $1 billion business, but it's also for somebody who's looking to build systems that work for you so you can make more money than you need just by working part-time, essentially. I was actually just listening to an episode he had on Kareen Walsh behind the app Hey Kareen, and Kareen talked a lot about how to scale your business effectively, especially if you're just a startup, especially if you are just an app startup specifically. It's an awesome episode. I would recommend it to anyone. You could check them out and you can listen to the Hustle and Flow chart wherever you get your podcasts.